Lately I've been thinking about this life and how it brought me here. Staring at this man in the mirror, I see him often here. Wipe my tears, only if you knew what I was going through. Only if you walked it in my shoes. Certain things don't like to talk about, but I'll always remember. The chaos in my mind turned my heart out in November. I'm surrounded by too many doors, not sure which way I entered. But I'm rocking with my loved ones, let you know that front and center. Found out my skin's tough as leather, I can storm through any weather. Addiction was the hardest battle I ever endeavored. It takes a lot of effort to apply all of this pressure. Being higher than propellers only drove me through the shredder. I need some hope right now.
Welcome to the Message Hope Podcast, where hope stands for hearing other people's experience. My name is Adam.
My name is Mike, and today in the studio we have a woman that I met about 8 years ago. She doesn't remember, but I remember. She was my counselor in a treatment center.
Oh, I didn't know that.
She has
That's cool.
15 years clean,
Yeah.
and she's here in the studio with us. Rachel, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
And I've known Rachel for the last 11 years that I've been clean.
Yeah.
Right? Her husband, who will actually be on the podcast soon too, he is a big part of my life, a big part of my early recovery. And so that means she was too, right? They helped me out through a lot of early recovery stuff. And yeah, it's been an honor. So yeah, thank you guys for being here before I got here. Yeah.
Thank you.
So Rachel, we started out the same way every time. Tell us about how you grew up, where you grew up, what your childhood was like. Did you have both parents? Was there addiction in the household, or what was that like?
Oh, I would say up until fourth grade, 9 years old, is when I finally settled, and we settled in Ontario. And prior to that, I would go to school in Pomona with my grandma being babysat because my parents, they moved around quite a bit, and we lived with some family members sometimes, depending. I think my dad had just gotten out of service when I was born. So my earliest memories are probably be more of from the fourth grade and going to Sultana Elementary. Always stood out different. You know, I got along with everybody, though. That's the thing. Like, I got along with everybody. I just never fitted, like I wasn't in with anybody. Like, I could just be a chameleon.
Yeah.
And then it was kind of hard because, like, my brother, I have an older brother. He's a year and 9 months older than me. So we're pretty close in age, and he was always in trouble, like always in trouble. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of the attention went to him a lot, being in trouble a lot. And so I was always a reader. I would just be in the corner reading my books, playing with my Barbies. I didn't really socialize too much. Yeah, I come from a two-parent family home, so my parents, no divorce. I think we had one aunt that ever got divorced, and, you know, it was like a whisper. Yeah. That's the kind of family that, like, all of my family, like what I come from. And my other aunt, my mom's sister, it was a whisper of her affairs that she would have at times. But, like, everybody, the families, they always stayed married.
Yeah.
And my dad, oh, my hero, really good example of a loving father and husband. Well, okay, let me tell the truth. Father-wise, took some time to grow into.
Yeah.
You know, he had a bit of a temper too, but my brother got most of it than I did.
Right.
I just witnessed more, and I, yeah, that was a lot growing up. But yeah, so I grew up in Ontario, and for the most part, but since he got in a lot of issues around there, I kind of ventured out. I would hang around and go to schools in Chino. My mom moved us around in schools a lot.
That was before fourth grade?
That was after fourth.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
After fourth grade. Yeah. We would get moved around, especially me, whenever we got into any kind of trouble. It was like, okay, I'm going to move you back to this school. I'm going to move you to that school.
Yeah.
So I don't have a lot of long-lasting friendships.
Right.
Junior high is when I met one of my good friends, and I only have one friend from, like, elementary that, like, I stayed in touch with most of the time, and, you know, we ended up using. So we stayed in touch all throughout, even after high school.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know. School, I got in fifth grade. I got into a fight with the Popular Girls. First, I was part of them, right? And everybody would take a turn. There was one instigator who would take a turn picking on the next one. And so then it became my turn. So got into a huge fight after school. My brother was there. He had to jump in. And because some older black girl jumped in. So then he jumped in. And then my mom moved to schools again. And I went to Magnolia Junior High. So went over to Chino. So I would go back and forth sometimes. High school was like that too.
Yeah.
I'd go to Chino High, got caught ditching. She'd move back to Ontario. Same thing, trouble there. Moved me back to, and so I always, though, had good grades, but I didn't get credits for them because I kept moving.
Yeah.
So, but 8th grade is when so I was an honor roll student on 6th and 7th and all my growing up. But 8th grade, I think this is where I just kind of finally had it. My brother was like, it was just a lot at home. Him getting in trouble a lot. Me having to be in the middle, like between the two men in my life that because I looked up to my brother, that was my big brother, always took care of me, looked after me, or that's how I felt, right? And then my dad was my dad, And so them fighting, really was hard on me.
Yeah.
And I would get mad because even little, I remember being so little and having to jump out in the middle of the hallway and jump between them, stop, And I remember looking over one time and I seen my mom just in the room in the door hall, cowering. And I remember getting so angry because I was like, why are you, you're not, I'm watching this whole thing escalate. And so I felt it could have been stopped a lot earlier.
Yeah.
But, it's easy to look at things in hindsight and see objectively and see more views. But now living life myself, I realize that when you're in the middle of something, sometimes not all of the avenues of how to fix something is right there in front of you in that moment, and your feelings get in the way, and panic and fear. So, I get to work through these things today, thank God. And understand, have a better understanding. But at that time, I built this huge resentment, and I got really angry. So I think that kind of also put a real wedge between me and my mom's relationship. A few other things too, but that really put a wedge between us. And so from then, it was just once I was in 8th grade, I found people that were ditching and my brother, that was his thing. He would be ditching. He'd be hanging around the wrong crowd. He was always getting in trouble. So I was like, well, you know what? I'm tired of my boring good life. Apparently it's not enough. Yeah. So I decided to start, I kind of just picked them out, these friends to I want to, and a lot of times they were like, no, you need to be in school. I was like, no, I'm following you. I'm going. I want to have fun too. I want to be out there.
It's the rebellion in you.
Yeah, it kicked in fast. So they always, they have this little thing yeah, Rachel, all my family, they'll be like, yeah, she was this sweet little girl that would just sit there. She was really good, and then all of a sudden, I don't know what happened. She turned 13 and that was it. I started running away from home. So it was pretty simple for me. I was I just wanted away from everything, I had a picture perfect family on the outside, but the inside was so much turmoil. And then I didn't even know, you know what I mean? Being 13, I'm just trying to find myself. So I had my own turmoil going on, right? Mm-hmm. I'm getting these feelings. I'm like, what is all this stuff, And I didn't have a close relationship with my mom. So I didn't feel I could approach and have a deep conversation. Anytime I tried to approach on something, I just felt like it was brushed off. I'm too young to ask these questions.
Yeah.
So, I went to the street. That's what I did, and I started running away. And the first time I ran away, my brother got into this accident and flipped the truck. And then they came and told me. So I ended up going back home after the weekend, and then that kind of became my MO. I would get fed up and I would take off. I would take off for the weekend, and then I might come back. It happened quite a few times to where I had a friend, she wanted to run away. So she was like, hey, I want to go. Let's go. And I was like, all right, let me show you how it's done. I'd take them out. My cousin, same thing. So I kind of got, my dad's mom, my other grandma, did not like me. I was a bad influence because I had took my my cousin from a church event. Like, I had no real bars or it was like, I'll use any opportunity I can, you know, and I got away.
Yeah.
But a lot of times it was just, we really didn't do anything.
Just ran away.
I just ran away, you know. I would just kick back, you know, if I had a friend's house to kick back at. Like the first time I had a friend that her mom worked all the time. She was a single mom, was never there. So I was able to just hide out and be there. You know what I mean? I didn't do anything. One time though, I walked the streets in Chino because like there was this house party, so I went to show up to that for a little bit. It really wasn't even all that. I was like, this is it, like I'm done. So we were just walking around all night, you know. So eventually I go back home because I was just like, I need a shower, I need my clothes, like.
Yeah.
And that was pretty much my
What's
life.
the longest time like you ran away from?
A week.
A week?
Yeah. Yeah, my grandparents actually came and got me that time.
Bro, I would have been headhunting. I already had an experience like that with my kids, bro. And I'm telling you, I was like fucking the cops out there, bro. Like I was locations, like all kinds of stuff, bro. I was ready to kick people's doors down. The cops had to tell me to back up and get out of the place where my daughter was. And this was
Yeah.
a few hours. Yeah.
Oh.
Huh?
It was like 6 months ago, wasn't it?
Yeah, like longer than that because I was living on the mountain.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I don't know how long ago it was, but yeah, my daughter, they ran away. One of the little boys, anyway, it doesn't matter. My point is, right, I show up there at 6 in the morning and I'm fucking hunting that whole mountain down. You know what I'm saying? And one of the first things I told her when she got in the car, I said, next time you fucking do that, if I have to fucking call Gasper, I'm going to call him. You know what I'm saying? She was like,
Right.
She looked at me, she said, but I'm like, I don't know. It's also a different time,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right? Like
Right.
my mom talked about how like when she was a kid, they could walk from one city to the next and everything was safe. Like the community and the people took care of each other. And now, like when you hear your kid ran away, well, did she run away? Was she abducted? Was she, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
And your mind, like my head goes straight to freak mode. You know what I'm saying? And my kids, I think that's something they know about me is dad is not who he used to be, but there's something there that is if it's awakened, he's gonna fucking. I tell him like I would have killed and hurt anybody from my friends. If you think that I love fucking my friends more than I love you guys, you're out of your fucking mind. I will go to prison. I will do whatever it takes to make sure you guys are safe and protected, you know? But yeah, I can't even imagine my daughter running away for a week. I'd be kicking people's doors down for sure in a heartbeat. But again, different times.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. And
Yeah.
good thing I'm walking through this because Mike will have to walk through it.
Shit. I know.
Yeah, it's you know, I had a glimpse of that feeling when I got clean and we got married, and my daughter we went to and we were at church, right? And she didn't want to do the youth group, but I forced her to go into the youth group. And then I went to go get her afterwards, right? And like for just that, like 5-10 minutes that I'm like, everybody's coming out and you're coming towards the end, and I'm like, she's not coming out, and like I know what I done, you know, before. So I was just, and I knew how like she was upset that day, like, you know what I mean, being forced. And there was a lot of things going on that I was like, man, I just for that moment to have that, like that feeling. And I remember thinking like, wow, Rachel, you put your dad and your mom through this, like, especially my dad, because I know he felt it. Like I put him through that like numerous times. I can't even count. Like it became a habit. They stopped looking at some points because it was just like, she's going to go, she'll be back, you know? And it was just, he just didn't want to, you know, what was, you know, the point, you know? The only time they would look is when somebody else would go with me and their family was like, I need you to find her. And then they would go on a mission and they'd find us. Right. Yeah. And then my cousin didn't listen to me that one time, and I told her let's not reach out to the other cousin. She's like, oh yeah, we can. I was like, no, like, trust me, I've done this. I know what not to do. And I was like, we're going to go home. I already know it. It was fine.
Yeah.
So like during this time, were you like smoking, drinking, partying? None of that?
Drinking, yeah.
Okay.
I had not smoked weed. I had not done any other drugs, only drinking. The very first time I ran away, I knew nothing of what drugs themselves look like, but I did know of people doing drugs. And so like that friend that like her mom was a single mom and ran away, and she lived across the street from Chino High. So like we were just right there. I would just ditch school and then stay. My mom, they didn't know my friends. So she had some older people in that apartment complex that they used, and I remember like they offered her, and I was like, oh, let's try some, like, and come to find out, I wasn't even sure what it was, but apparently they were like smoking PCP and all that. So it was like they were like, no, you can't. You know, I always, and for me, I realized that that's my God, who's always looked out and made sure that didn't happen. Right. You know, I also one time was really, really wanted to do acid. And my best friend, the one that I have from junior high, like she's tried it, she's done it. And the one time I was like, nah. And then one time I was so freaking mad, and I was just like, you know what? Give me some, let's get some. And she's like, you're too pissed off. If you have a bad, I'm not, you know, so. And like I used to get mad about it, but I'm grateful, you know, I'm grateful. And I realized that, you know, I really feel that my God was looking out for me. Yeah. Because once something gets like, here's my introduction to meth, right? So, like I said, 13, running away, I did not, I just drank here and there. I would do ditching parties, drinking, you know. Drinking always, though, whenever I drank, it was always to get wasted. Yeah. It was never just I don't know about that social, it wasn't even for the taste. It was like, how strong is this, right? Yeah. But I didn't really like it because I didn't like feeling dizzy, and I didn't like, once I start feeling sick, then I just want to go to sleep. I didn't like not being in control. And I did have like one experience that like I was almost wasted, and stuff that was happening, I was like, I had to like fight off. And I was like, I don't ever want to be in that position again, you know? And so I was just like, yeah, I'm not doing that. So I didn't get carried away with it really. But I ended up at 15 having a baby. I got pregnant. And after that, my family started treating me different. My dad, up until that point, my dad was like very strict. I couldn't go anywhere. Like my brother, we're only a year and 9 months apart. My dad got saved and was going to church when I was, also when I turned 9. So he was just starting his journey of, you know, his process and his change, right? He used to drink too. But he put that down, and he was going to church and did some changes. And in that, like, we had family friends, and so they had kids, right? How the parents get along and introduce the kids, and we start hanging around with the kids. So my brother could go out with those kids, but I couldn't. And I was like, well, we're only a year difference. Like, why can they go to, oh my gosh, Bullwinkles? Remember Bullwinkles? Yeah. So yeah, over there in Ontario, Bullwinkles. And they would go to like, it's the go-karts. It's like Scandia. And they would go there, and I couldn't. And I was like, why can't I hang out? Or they were invited to the beach, and I couldn't. And so I always, you know, my dad was really, I couldn't even have people call my house, like my girlfriends, unless he talked to their parents, right? Yeah. So that's why they didn't really know my friends, because I had to keep them all on the down, like, because I wasn't going to put everybody through all of that. Yeah. But once I had a baby, it changed. For me, I felt like, oh, now you guys are going to see me as an adult. Now you're going to like not ask me where I'm at all the time. And now you're going to like give me some space and treat me like an adult. And so, yeah, I thought I was grown. And, you know, they were like, this is when it was just kind of happening. They had continuation for women with children. So I was like, I'm going to show you guys, like, I'm going to graduate. I'm going to, you know, even with a child, you know. And I would start off well, but that didn't happen. I ended up, finally, because they let off, I ended up dating this person, and he was smoking weed. He was doing a lot of drugs. But I didn't know about all those other drugs. But the weed I did. So I started smoking weed. At this point, I'm like 17. And And so I started using. And my first experiment with meth is like my younger cousin was using. And prior to that, to her offering it to me, I was doing those no doses, or also there was another pill that was out to like help lose weight. Because I've always struggled with, my weight being a little chunky, and so, and that was another thing growing up, I always had comments from my mom of like, you can't wear that, and I always felt it was my weight, and I wasn't as skinny as she was, and that's the message I got. Yeah. I don't know if that's the message she meant to give, but that's the message I got a lot. Right. Like something, I wasn't perfect enough or pretty enough. So I was always working on that. And so anyways, that's why what happened was my cousin had some meth, and I was like offered, and I was like, well, my thought at that moment was, everybody says these pills work for them. They say all this, and I tried and nothing working. You guys are all full of it. Now they tell me drugs are dangerous, but they're saying, they're using. And I was like, well, let me try. Let me see if this thing even works at all. And it was some good stuff. So I had a head change right away, and I liked it. At that time, my routine on the weekends was to go shoplifting, because that was my rush. And so we did. And, first time tweaking and shoplifting, didn't go well together.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the guy told me after they said, we saw you were like, all over. And I was like, oh, damn. So I got busted. My grandma, my dad's mom, had to come get me because she was living with us at the time. I was like, oh, out of all people, she already thinks I'm the bad influence to everybody. I also had my daughter with me, right? She was just barely a year, a baby. And I had my best friend who was too afraid to shoplift, but she would open her bag and I would put everything in, right? She was with me, but because she didn't actually do the act, they let my baby go with her. So I was... different time, different era, right? Yeah, different time, different era. I got a break. They called my grandma to come get me. They did do fingerprints, though, and then they let me go. So I went home, and I just remember thinking, okay, well, these two don't go hand in hand. Like, I can't shoplift and get loaded. And I was like, I want to try this shit again. So I stopped shoplifting after that, because then I was like, oh, I could lose my baby. That wasn't cool either, and so I picked up the meth because, I don't know, that would be better, I guess, or safer. That was my frame of mind.
More of a rush for sure.
It was a rush, and I was off and running with it. Off and running. I don't remember easing into weekends only. I would do it in between school. I was going to school and I was working. But yeah. I mean, as long as there was an opportunity in between, that's what I would do,
Were you living at home still during this time?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was living at home, but a year into me using meth, I got kicked out of the home. And then I moved in with my best friend, and her dad helped me get a job. And he taught me how to drive stick shift because it was a driving job, delivering. So I ended up with that job for a while, and I lived there for a little bit. And it was off and running from there. I started moving around.
With your baby?
With the baby.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. With my baby. I was moving around. I was there. Then I went and got with her dad's family, knowing nothing. But I learned quickly about his drug use of heroin. And I always thought I was different because, I didn't stick a needle in my arm.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So, I just had a really horrible experience with his sister out there. So I had forbidden myself from ever touching heroin. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You mentioned a couple of things, Rachel. One was the moving around, and I can relate with that because moving around schools and always feeling like the new kid and always feeling like the outsider is like a lasting impression on us, and it did for me. And then also having that picture perfect family, but inside was all messed up. That was something that was like stuck with me too, And it wasn't so much that it wasn't picture perfect. It was my dad not being around. And I wondered why. And I thought we think as children, it's like, what did I do? And I remember that moment where I got loaded the first time and all that was just taken away. And I love that, the relief that came with that. I fell in love with it. So I needed to be in an altered state of mind because it took all that away, you know? So do you remember that moment for you?
Where I just,
The first time you used, or the first time you were like, this is it.
I remember the tingles on my head.
So it was it was the method.
It was a meth.
Okay.
It was a meth. I had energy, you know, everything that I wanted to do. I had the energy to do it all of a sudden, you know what I mean? And I was starting to lose weight, and I was just like, oh, this is pretty cool, you know? Yeah. And I was getting attention, right? Any attention. Negative attention, still good attention, right? Yeah. So yeah, it just really, it filled a huge void for me.
Right.
I also didn't have to feel anymore.
Right.
Right? So like whatever was going on around, it didn't have to bother me no more. Like I didn't feel it, so it didn't faze me. Yeah. I really didn't like that. I've always been a very sensitive person, and you know, I feel deep. So I didn't like that because I felt like, you know. So early on growing up, a lot of times when I would cry, like, you know what I mean? I love my dad, but my dad had this thing of like, you know, everything's passed down, right? So it was kind of like, well, if you want a reason to cry, because I would just cry because he would yell at me because I was just like, oh, I'm in trouble, you know? And it's crazy because I wouldn't with my mom so much, but with my dad, yeah. Like he could just look at me and I would just, I'd start crying. And so then he would be like, you want a reason to cry? And I remember early on, I was just like, okay, don't do that because he's going to give me a reason to cry. Yeah. And I would go to my room. So early on, I would just put my head in a pillow so nobody could hear me. Nobody could see me. I didn't, you know, so when I got, you know, used meth and I didn't have to cry. I didn't feel a thing. I was like, oh, now I'm not this little wuss, you know?
Yeah.
And it's funny because it's like it's a solution to like the pieces of us that we don't like, right? When I drank for the first time,
yeah.
I was cool, I was talkative, I was comfortable, I wasn't shy, right? And then I felt like weed, right? I love weed. I smoked it every day for years, right? But it also kept me in the couch. It also kept me relaxed. It also kept me like not motivated to tag on walls or do this or robberies or, you know what I'm saying? I just wanted to smoke a joint, smoke a blunt and just like not do nothing. And then I found meth and I was like, this is what I want to do because this gets me awake. It numbs my feelings, right? Because, and I share about this a lot, but like for me, like the kind of person I am is not accepted in the world that I come from. So even since I was a kid, I felt like I was forcing myself to be somebody different so that I could be accepted, right? Like I wasn't like a very violent person, but I forced myself to be violent, right? I wasn't, I just wasn't a lot of things that I forced myself to become, right? Because of situations. And then I became that for so long, I believed that that's who I was, right? And I believe, and so, like, I remember when they said the masks have to go, I was like, what fucking masks are you talking about? This is me, you know what I'm saying? All this stuff. And it's like, bro, like, those are the masks that have to go, right? And it's not about, like, not being tough. I'm a tough fucking dude, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not anything, you know what I'm saying, like, weak or anything like that. But I don't have to be that everywhere I go either, you know what I'm saying? And so, like, meth did something for me that no other substance was able to do for me, and it made me feel confident until it took it away, because then it became weird and inward. And one, you know, like at the beginning I'm doing meth and I'm going from here, I'm going there, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm writing on walls on the freeway, I'm like doing all this stuff. We're plotting on people, and then next thing you know it, I think everybody's plotting on me. I'm in a fucking room with our motel with a machete, like everybody's out to get me, like, and it becomes like really fucking weird, right? And so like the one thing, like, and Mike talks about this, right? The problem with drugs is they work well.
Yeah.
They work really well, right? They do what they're supposed to do. They get you loaded. They make you feel a certain way, right?
Yeah.
But somewhere along the line, it turns on you.
Yeah.
Somewhere along the line, like the one thing that gave me confidence no longer gives me confidence. The one thing that makes me feel safe no longer makes me feel safe. The one thing that made me feel like I was tough and like, you know, if you had a gun and I had a machete, like I was gonna fucking win, right? Like that one thing, it reverted and made me feel the complete fucking opposite of all that. You know what I'm saying? And so, yeah, it's just, and another thing you said, was like I could always find somebody that was worse off than me. Always. I always had like a limit. I'm
Okay.
never doing that. I'm never doing that. I'm never putting needles in my arm. I'm never doing heroin. I'm never, being that guy who's mowing his lawn at 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm never going to be that guy who's taking the TV apart. And then I became all those fucking things. You know what I'm saying? I'm never going to be that weird dude. And I became him tenfold. You know what I'm saying? So it's like I can always, and even that, even though I got deeper into my addiction, deeper into all like everything I said I would never do, I could still find somebody across the room and like, well, at least I'm not that dude.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Even though I'm the second worst dude in the room, at least I'm not the first worst dude in the room. You know what I'm saying? And so, yeah, so all that stuff there's a lot of similarities for sure.
So
Yeah.
when did it? That's the beginning of your using. When did it start to get like a problem, where you could identify it as a problem?
So truthfully, I'm going to say that a year into using meth, I did kind of have an inclination that this is going to be a problem. You
Just
know?
maybe.
Yeah,
Just
just
maybe.
kind of,
Yeah.
I was like already had moved around with my daughter, and I had already like been between jobs, and and I knew that it all had to do with my using, and relationships were just nothing steady.
Yeah.
So yeah, I already kind of had, and I was having issues with my family. Yeah, at this point they knew, and we were having issues, And at this point, not only did they know that I was using, at this point I found out that like my uncles used. That, I knew my brother was using, but I found out he was using, and he was using with them. And I was like, this is more in my family than I had any idea about, So, yeah, it was, but I wasn't done. I was only 18. I
Yeah.
was young still. I had time. I have a good, I come from a good home. So like, you know what I mean? I'll be able to figure this out. Right. I'm smart. I could do my education. So, I could have, just for a little bit longer, I'm going to have some fun still.
Right.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Until all of a sudden I'm like 31 years old and I'm having a birthday in jail. And I was like, the one place I thought I would never be. And I was just like, what the hell? How did I get here? The table. And my husband, I love him.
I do too.
He's always got to be. But so I ended up having my 31st birthday in jail. And I was in jail because I got pulled over, me and my boyfriend at the time, for riding a bike on the wrong side of the road. We were initially getting pulled over in Muscoy, right?
Hell yeah.
Yeah, that's where I was.
Sounds like a love story. If I
Oh my God. And actually, we were just talking about this because my daughter, my oldest one, I had left the kids. So yeah, it was pretty bad at this point. I hate to, I really still like, it's crazy to think like, but it's the truth, right? This is my life. This happened. This is the decision making that I did. This is what really happened, So I had to move, and I had found another place. Of course, all of the money was off of my welfare check, right? My money. And he found the place, but, I was going to pay for it. So we were moving. And I had packed everything, and it was coming towards the end of the day, and he was supposed to bring stuff back for me, right? Because I'm packing, and the whole reason why he's not there is because he's picking up, right? So every time he comes back, it's some story, right? And he's got to go back again. So finally, this last time, he was like, it's right now, for sure, I'm going to go back. And I was just like, I'm burnt. You're full of shit. I'm going with you. So I insisted to find out what the hell was really going on and to go with him. And I was like, I'm getting me some. So I left my kids. My oldest one was 8, I believe. And my youngest was barely a year. But I would have her watch her. And then I had my son in the middle, right? They're like 3 years apart. So he was probably like 3 going on 4. But so I left them, and then we had a connection, but he was kind of a friend. We hung out, quite a bit. So he volunteered to stay with the kids so that I could go with my dude at the time, and we did. And this guy, I can't with him. But so we did, and then when we were going, because we were riding our bikes on the wrong side of the road in Muscoy, the officer went to pull us over. And the boyfriend took off, and I was like, okay, we're running. I don't know why we're running, but let's go run, So I followed to running and not knowing that because he had shit on him. So, of course, right? And so in the midst of that, he ran. Well, first the officer went to grab him. He was only able to run because I got in between them, right? I got in between the officer and him, and I thought I was just separating them, but apparently I swung and I hit the officer. So I didn't realize this. I stayed. He pepper sprayed me. I really couldn't go anywhere. And yeah, and then
hurts.
yeah, that shit was burning. And then they ended up catching him, and then we both ended up getting locked up. And I remember sitting in that cell, San Bernardino, and I remember like I could hear him talking to the boyfriend and saying, "Is she like this all the time?" And I was like, "Am I like what? Like I'm not doing anything." So yeah, that was my wake up of like, wow, where did my life? I remember being in the back of the car and panicking because I was just like, my kids, like nobody, like I had distanced myself from my family. His mom lived down the street, but I didn't know how to get a hold of them. And I was trying to see if they would let me use the phone in the back of the car. And I was like, I need to call somebody for my kids. And they're like, are they there alone? And I was like, no, but I just need to call somebody. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to have them taken away from me. So by the grace of God, and I'm going to tell you the truth, like I really feel like God intervened that my kids didn't go to CPS because I don't know if I would have worked that hard.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I would like to say that I would, and it's not that I don't love my kids, and they know this. I love them dearly. Mm-hmm. But I didn't love myself enough to put enough work. So how am I going to love them enough?
Yeah.
And I just really thank God that he kept them out of it. And, and I didn't have to. At some point, I just left my kids with my parents on my very last runs, pretty much. And because, they're safer there. I'm being a good mom, right? But it was really because I didn't have to carry this responsibility.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're all guilty of that.
Yeah. Everybody at this table is guilty for that, right? Mike says, the only thing stronger than a mother's love is a disease of addiction.
Yeah.
And that's just reality, right? And that's a lot of guilt and shame that we come in with, right? And people don't understand that. Like, that guilt and shame will fucking take you right back the fuck out the door. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? If you don't address it, deal with it, understand it, learn how to accept it, right? Understand that we have a disease and not a moral dilemma,
Right.
And just learning about that. I think that's the most important thing is about learning about what this disease really is. It isn't just the physical dependency on a substance. It's the mental and spiritual dependency on a substance, the way it changes your brain. And that's why addiction is classified a disease, not just because people in 12-step fellowships say it is. No, it's classified in disease in medical books. Right. When people go to treatment and they have a job, guess what they get to go on? They get to go on disability because they're treating a disease. Just like if someone had, any other disease, right? Right. They get to go to the hospital, right? And if they have to be in the hospital for months, guess what they get? They get disability because it's an ailment, right? And it's the same thing with the disease. And when we start to understand that it's a disease of the body, it's a disease of the mind, and it's a disease of the spirit, we kind of learn how to like forgive ourselves a little bit better, right? But that doesn't mean, like a lot of people, like you'll even see people say, oh, 12 steps they use as an excuse that we're power. No. That's not what it is. It's about taking accountability for our actions and saying, you know what, like I'm powerless when I'm loaded, but now that I'm clean, I have power and I could do something about it, right? And that's what relieves the guilt and shame. Okay, this is who I used to be, right? But this is what I'm doing today, right? And that's the only way for me to let go of the past is to say, this is who I am today. This is what I've done today. And I just have to keep moving forward. I can't change what happened, but I could change what I could do today, right? So like any newcomer, anybody that's out there listening, like understand, like you don't have to, first of all, you don't have to keep going down the path, right? Second of all, like if you want something different, you have to be willing to do something different. You know what I'm saying? There's a fucking way out. There's many ways out. Many ways out, many ways, roads of recovery. You know what I'm saying? Choose one that's going to work for you and fucking work the program like you're supposed to.
Yeah, for sure.
So going to jail wasn't your last run?
No, it was a little wake up right there, but it wasn't my last run. I still went again. I still went on a good one. And in 2004, let me see, I started totaling my car, went into like 4 accidents within a year. I would get a vehicle and I was loaded and I decided to get back in the car and I turned in front of oncoming traffic. They found me in the passenger side. So they thought that somebody else was driving, and so they didn't test me or anything. I've skated away with a lot of stuff, honestly.
Did you jump over, or did you get like knocked over?
I got knocked. I just remember seeing the flashing lights. I was turning, and there was like the headlights. I remember it being bright, and then after that, I don't remember nothing except for waking up in the hospital.
So you were moved somehow to the passenger side.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yep. And it was a ghost town because I was right in front of a Connections house. So, of course, nobody came out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You had one Good Samaritan that made the call, and the fire department got me out. Yeah, and all I could remember was my house number. Remember we had house phones?
Yeah.
Yeah, we had to remember the numbers. Yeah.
I still remember mine.
So, yeah. Yeah, that was the only number I remembered. And so they called, and they had my mom come get me. She did. Took me home. And I was there for the night. And when I woke up, she was already at work. She had left. And the kids, I went to school. But I knew that if I had stayed there until they all got home, that I could stay there. But I wouldn't be able to hang around with the people that I wouldn't be able to get loaded. Like, I couldn't leave to get loaded. They weren't going to let me. That was very clear. They were like, if you're here, you can't keep doing what you're doing and hanging around with the people you're hanging around with. And so I was like, yeah, I'm not done. So in pajamas, I walked from Bloomington to Grand Terrace, and to sleep on a garage floor. And that's what I did. And then in less than a month, I ended up making a phone call. I barely remember. I don't even know. I was taking muscle relaxers. I was getting high. I was taking whatever pills was in the cabinet, and I tried to cut myself, and I got locked up. I went to Arrowhead and went to a psych ward, and I remember waking up with this little 18-year-old in my face, and ay, qué bonita, like right up in my face. And I was like, what? Where am I? My floors were flooded with water because my roommate would always leave the shower on. And I was just like, where am I? I was just tired and I just wanted to rest.
Yeah.
Because through all of this, I kept a job. I don't know how, but I kept a job all the way in Ontario, living in Grand Terrace on a cement floor. And that didn't last. Obviously, after the psych ward, I ended up homeless. I told my mom I was out, and my mom brought me my purse because I had happened to, I don't know how I got it there, but I left it there. She brought me my purse, and then she brought me a jacket. My dad sent with the jacket. My dad didn't come, but because it was cold. It was around November, wintertime, and said, here. Dad said, keep this, stay warm. All right, cool. And I was okay with it. Like, I'm glad for getting loaded because I didn't feel.
Right.
I really didn't feel. I was just like, all right, well, cool. Yeah. And, I had a little luggage, and I would stay wherever I could, right? So I was like, oh, and now I'm officially homeless. And but keeping a job. I still worked. Until I had 2 days scheduled off, and I was like, oh, let me go hang out at the spot. I got 2 days off and go back to Rialto over here, and hung out at the spot. And I figured I have time to get into trouble. Ran with somebody and stole a car, and there we were. And I wanted to be the driver, and crazy, crazy, crazy. I thought I'll get away because as I was the driver, when of course, cops lit us up. There was a broken tail light, right? It's what, 2, 3 in the morning. Yeah, what are we doing out? I don't know. So I'm like, okay. And he's like, roll stop right here at the stop sign. So I rolled, stopped. He got out and took off. And I was like, oh, that's how you get away. And so then they're chasing the car, and I took off, right? And I'm cruising with the car, and I'm like flying. And I was like, okay, I just got to find another open field, a spot so I can run out, right? And I was like, okay, well, I got to get over. If I jump out the passenger side, they won't know that I was the driver. Let me tell you, I've been smoking a lot that night. I was smoking, and I was high as a kite. And it wasn't until I was stuck in the middle between the seats, and I was like, there's this huge spotlight on me. Like, I think they see me jumping to the side. And then I was like, nobody's going to drive this car, and it's going to run it. Like, for a moment, I had some clarity. Yeah. My God gave me enough sanity to realize that in this moment, if you do this car is going to run into a house. And what if a baby's sleeping? You're over here, you're not far from your own kid's house. That could have been your kids. Yeah. And that car's going to crash. You can't just leave that car. And I was like, for a moment of clarity, for that moment, I'm so grateful that I turned it. I was kind of stuck in between the seats. So what I did was turn it into the tree. And then got out, and I surrendered, and I went in and, said something has to change. And I did. I tried, I came out and I went to AA meetings at the time, and I still didn't fully identify though. Yeah. I had a problem. I was kind of like you, but I wasn't, I come from a good home. I'm smart. You know what I mean? I got, I know how to clean up well. You know what I mean? I'm good. I can use some of what your program or what you're telling me to do. And I'll be fine. I just needed to get well on my way. And, that was good for a few years. And then, a month before, I would have supposedly celebrated 4 years clean, or sober or whatever. But I wasn't either or. Yeah. Because I was still drinking. I would drink alcohol here and there just to test the flavors out, because there was new flavors out, and I didn't have a problem with it.
Yeah, for sure. You got to test a new
flavor.
You
got to try it.
Come on. I was like, alcohol really wasn't my thing. I'm missing out right now. Let me just, and I was able to rationalize and justify that. And until a situation happened, I picked up one time. I figured I got a job. I got everything. I'm not going to stay loaded. I, learn to manage this. And that didn't happen, full-fledged again. Yep. And then in that, I had some clarity, right? Because I had some clean time. So I had, I had some brain cells recover. Yeah. Yeah. So I could no longer, the things that became apparent to me were no longer, I couldn't just pull the covers over and pretend like I didn't know something, right, or I didn't see this. So it's a totally different thing now at that time, getting loaded, destroying my life, and really acknowledging it. Yeah. And so I felt that total powerlessness, because even though I knew I was destroying everything, I knew that the people at work were already on to me, and they were trying to test me and corner me. I knew I was going to lose a job. I knew I was disappointing my family. I knew I was not showing up for my kids, for their parent. I would just tell them, make sure they go to school, but I wasn't present, involved in their lives. I wasn't present, involved in anybody's life, not even my own at that time. Yeah. Not even my own. And yet still I just couldn't stop. Yeah. I just couldn't stop. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And anyways, eventually, January 3rd, 2009, my dad had a massive heart attack. So up until that point, I never realized how much I always kind of counted on that I would always, as long as he's there, I'm all right, and I have a chance to get my life together. So with him being gone, like really changed a lot of stuff in my life. It changed a lot. And then the fact that like I was loaded and the way I treated him the last day, but the fact that I wasn't even present in that last moment, like I just wasn't even present at all. Like no emotional attachment, no like mental like there, just not even there present. Really kicked me. And so like I always tell people, like I vowed at that moment that even if I died trying, because up until that point, I had already, before he passed, I had decided that screw it. I'm going to be a screw up for the rest of my life. This is just what it is. Let me just try to make the best of it. Get loaded and try to get a job and just try to live life and, just get by. I had surrendered to, I'm going to be an addict.
Yeah.
And, but when he passed, I was like, I can't surrender to that because he deserved more than that. I knew that when I had a week into relapsing, I had stood before and told him like, I'm kind of messing up and I don't know what to do. And he's like, you know what to do. You know what to do. Just do it.
And you
And he
did.
walked away.
You did know what to do too.
Yeah.
Kinda.
Yeah. Those words, like after he was gone, like I just drawed in every conversation that I had with him because now that's all I had. Now all I have is memories, and I needed to and like I was like, I got to remember everything, like like what have I had, like, and it's crazy because when you have your parent there, you kind of think like, oh my gosh, you're telling the same story again, or, oh, okay, I'll like now's not the time. I don't want to hear this right now, and like when he was gone, I was like, oh my gosh, these conversations are like freaking priceless. I need to remember all of them, like pull them back. And I'm grateful. I'm grateful that, I was able to be present for some of that, before he passed, So all that kicked in, and I vowed that if I died trying, that's what I was going to do to get clean, And I didn't get clean right away. What I did was I didn't get loaded during the day while I was there for my mom and the family, right? But once she settled in, then I would call up and go out and pick up. So that was my,
Justification.
Yeah. I'm not too bad right now because I'm not doing it, while I'm here with you guys.
Yeah.
But I'll pick up while you're asleep or trying to get some sleep, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so eventually I did have to ask my mom for help. And I always tell people that was my step, because like I said, there's just been a strain in our relationship early on. There always was. And I'll tell you today from working some steps that I've come to a realization is that a lot of that strain had nothing to do with me.
Right.
Had nothing to do with me. They're doing the best they can with what they know, with what they have. And, everybody, my son sent me something not too long ago, and it talks about, I've always been your kid. I will always love you. I realized because it was like this thing, this lady was speaking about how I've always been your child. And I love you so much because I've always been your child, but I have to remember that you haven't always been my parent. There was a time that you were somebody's child, right? So they have their own voids. They have their own stories, and it was really neat to hear that perspective. I'm grateful for my recovery today because for me, it might not seem fast enough of changing, but when I take a look at it, there are some changes happening that we don't have to continue the same cycles within our families anymore, but it gets a little ugly first sometimes, right?
Yeah.
So how long after your dad passed away, how long after did you get clean?
3 months.
3 months. What was that like? So you asked your mom for help. What was it like a really bad day? Was there this really bad moment? Did you have this pit in your stomach where you're just I can't do this no more? What was that for you?
I had went out the night before, went drinking and using, and but right before I went out, I I was always out. I was very rarely at the house, and going to get milk all the time, right? Never coming back. And so something had to be missing from the house. I was like, I go to the store. So I came back that evening before I went out again to pick up and drink and all that stuff. And I had told the kids, because I had an hour before I could go back out again. And so I told them, they were like, play the Wii. They kept begging for me to play the Wii with them. They wanted me to play games. And I was like, okay, fine. I said, only for an hour. I said, I just have an hour. That's it. You guys, that's it. That's all I'm giving you. And they're like, okay. And so we played, and it was fun. And then as soon as that time came up, I was like, I gotta go. And I left, right? And when I got home, it was probably about 3 or 4 in the morning that I got back, and there was a note on my bed from my youngest one. And my youngest one, I call her my tweaker baby because I was getting loaded with her in the first 5 months. I tried to stop, but it didn't work out that way until eventually I did. But she's one that would just be up all night sometimes. Yeah. My other ones, if you turn all the lights off and lay down, then you know what I mean? But she was one that you could have the lights off, and that kid I'm like, you gotta go to bed, girl. You gotta lay down. And but for her, at this point, she had to be 9. She left me a note, and it said, I tried to stay up, and I wanted to say thank you, Mom, so much. That was the most fun that we've had, and I really thank you for playing the Wii. And I was like, it broke me. I said, yeah, this has to stop. I already missed out on my last time with my dad. I already know what that's like to live with that regret in that last moment. And here I am setting myself up to do it again with my kids. And I was like, you know better. And so I just said, okay, something has to change. I'm going to tell you the truth, though. In that moment, I knew something had to change. I got in my car, and I was going to go pick up, right? Because the pain was too great. Yeah. That was my routine. On the way of going to pick up, I just couldn't. I broke down, and I pulled over to the side of the road, and I surrendered, and I called out to my God, to my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, and I asked him for help. Yeah. I said, I'm done. I don't know what to do. I have no idea how to stop this. I don't want to feel this, but I also don't want to keep doing this. Right. And so at that point, the thought came, go back home. Tell your mom. He said, if you're really done, go surrender. Mm-hmm. So I did. I turned around, I went back home, and I went face to face with her and told her the thing that I knew that she knew, and she knew that I knew that she knew, and we all knew, but we never said. And I said, Mom, I'm getting loaded. I said, I've been using meth, and I need to stop, and I don't know how. And surprise, surprise, her answer was, I don't know either. She goes, let's call somebody. So we called our pastor, and then he called somebody from the fellowship who also, works in program. And I see Narcotics Anonymous just come to life for me. Those that were in the program just reached out and set up and made availability, make an appointment, got me in bed. I went to treatment. I knew I couldn't do it there. There was just too many feelings at home. Yeah. I even dragged out from treatment. I didn't have to do it. I had a home to go back to, right? I had my mom. I had the kids there. I can go back home. But 60 days is nothing to deal with my ghost. That was nothing. My ghosts are not out there. They're they follow me. And if I go home, I've got way too many ghosts right there. Yep. And I said, I know I am nowhere emotionally ready to go home. Because the other thing is that my family's been processing and moving on with my dad's passing, and they've been bonding, and I haven't. And here I'm going to come into this environment feeling left out one more time, right? Yeah. And I already felt disconnected. So now I was going to add that much more disconnection. Mm-hmm. So I was like, I want to do what these girls are doing. They're going to sober livings. Why can't I? Yeah. So I asked for it. Nobody offered it to me because I wasn't a homeless person, right? But I learned to take action in my recovery early on. I said, I can't fail. This can't fail. Right. I can't leave a little bit of room for error. I just can't. My dad deserves so much more than that, and little by little, I've learned that so do I. Right. So do I. So I did sober living for 3 months, And then I went back home when it was time.
Oh yeah.
What's your clean date again? Just so.
March 26, 2009.
2009. All right, so 15 years.
Yeah.
Amazing. So you just started going to meetings, getting involved, obviously church too, right? And finding a good combination of all that. What was that like? What was it hard for you to get footing in like the whole new way of life?
I feel like it would have been hard, but I didn't give myself an opportunity to make it hard. I booked every single minute, every single second. At this point, I think my family also surrendered their hands and we're just like, I don't know how to help you. So, these people say they can help you, or you got suggestions, that like, whatever you got to do, I made it a point to, if any of my kids wanted to go with me or any of my family, I was invited, because when I'm getting loaded, I'm like, no, I'll be right back. Don't worry. You don't need to come with me. So I changed that right away and said, no, who's coming with me? Somebody come with me. I had an accountability partner. Yeah. I found out as many meetings as possible and said, well, in between looking for work, because that was my first thing, right? I had to get a job again. I said, in between looking for work, I went to as many meetings as possible. They had 6 a.m. I figured that the routine I started in treatment, don't stop that routine. Get up. Right. You're getting up that early. Yeah. Get up that early and keep going. Yeah. You've got to keep. I knew that it was just too hard to get there. It was too hard to get finally where I had gotten, that I had to work really hard. I couldn't slack. Because here's what I came to realize is that I'm not a disciplined person. Right. I'm not. I go by my feelings, whatever's convenient. Yep. So I couldn't give myself that room. And I didn't. I didn't allow that. So I went to meetings constantly. I went to church. They had discipleship. I volunteered everywhere that I went. I said, better than just going, let me get involved. Because I seen that people that got involved in things actually evolved, and they made bonds. Yeah. They made bonds with people. Yeah. And I knew that was lacking me. I knew, because I grew up in church. I've been, I've gone to the youth group. People love me. I'm not a bad person, and I seen that people seen that, but I didn't allow anybody in because I didn't want them to see some of those sides, right? My human side.
Mm-hmm. At one point, I know you went back to school, right?
I did. Mm-hmm.
When was that? When did you start that?
I went back to school the first time I attempted at getting clean.
That's where you started?
That's where I started. And then, I had my detour and everything. And then this time around, when I got clean this time in 2009, I didn't try to lead anything. I'm going to tell you, I got up every day and I was just like, okay, God, what are we doing? Yeah. That was my thing, everything. Fire. Even looking for work, I was just like, okay, Lord, I need your help. Where am I going? You guide me, you lead me. Which applications do you want me to fill out? Help me organize this, help me get this together. You're in every bit, every moment, everything. So yeah, when it came to school, I prayed on it. I prayed on everything. Early on, I didn't even trust myself to to make a meal. I didn't trust myself for anything, so I prayed on everything,
So what is it like now?
It's busy. It's busy, crazy, it's good though. I get to participate in a lot of things in life today. Like I said, though, there's a lot of growing up that had to be done because during this whole time, I really haven't emotionally grown, and so now I'm catching up twice, right? And changing some things, I didn't come from a bad home or anything, but there's some things that could be better, And there's things that I'm learning about myself that I'm hoping that as I learn, I can help, pay it forward, to others. And then especially even to my kids that I can, it's hard though. It's hard helping the ones that are the closest to you, you know, because there's a lot of stuff, even I remember, like my dad told me a lot of things and I didn't hear it until somebody else said it, right? Somebody who doesn't know me, because then I don't feel it's like, I don't feel it's, I don't have, they're not coming from any certain place because they don't even know me. You know what I mean? But when they say it, I'm like, that's what he was saying. Or my mom, right? That's what she was saying, you know? So like today I still stay true with keeping enough meetings in my, you know, I don't do, like when I first got out of program, I would maybe allow 1 day off from meetings. But I would go I would have 6 days a week. I would have something every night, every day, every night. Now I have, you know, a good balance of it. I get to ask myself today if I really want to go, like, you know what I mean? Or, you know, I have so many other tools, or do I just need to call somebody? Or do I just need to, like, you know, maybe some quiet time too? Like it's been a lot to get used to enjoying quiet time.
Yeah.
You know, that, I mean, because you get used to the chaos and you don't even realize how much it fills your voids. But yeah, I have, so 2 years in clean, I get married, right? Let me tell you about my little venture.
You got married at 2 years clean?
Yeah.
I thought you guys just met at 2 years.
We met at 2 years clean and I got married at 2 years clean. Yeah, you know, because, I mean, you know, I pray about everything, but, you know, I also am I was very, very hopeful person, and it was just like, oh, okay, this sign, sure, that's a sign, you know? And I'll tell you, and you know, I've seen God in the midst of it all. So, you know, I know that it is. I mean, here I am still, right? So obviously I'm following the steps, but I'll tell you this, I had no idea, like what I was really, really embarking on and how much I needed to grow. Like I had no idea how much work in me needed to be done. And so we met in July. We got married September 30th. We met July 3rd. We got married September 30th because we were like both trying to move out and get another, you know what I mean? Find our own feet. So we wanted to do that. I'm a real firm believer though. I wanted to do things differently today, and I didn't want to just live with somebody. I want to be married. I have my beliefs and I have my values, and that's where I was in my beliefs. And so I was like, I want God to be in the midst and honor. So I took my walk with Christ and my vow with him very seriously. And so I said, that's what it has to be. So I set bars and this guy kept jumping through them. And I was like, okay, well then there we are. You know, he showed up with a ring. He gave me, you know, he paid for my dress and said, go pick it out. And I was like, what? We're serious. This is happening. You know, because up until this point, I just met people that were like, would say things, but like never came through, you know? And yeah. And so, you know, it really impressed me. And then there were some things there that like, he liked pistachio ice cream, Thrifty's, that my dad's favorite. Like there was a lot of things he did that kind of reminded me. And so I was just like, okay, let's go. And so we did, you know, and it's been a journey. We both come from two totally different backgrounds, you know? And I really, really, though, I'm going to say this. My experience prior to getting married was, so my relapse was due to a relationship, right? I got my feelings hurt. I was in a relationship I wasn't supposed to be in, and I couldn't tell my job or anybody, right? So, like, you know, I covered it up, and that's why I got loaded. And then when I was getting clean, I went to, like, tell him that he didn't know that I was getting loaded again. He thought I had gotten clean. And I was like, I got to tell you something. You know, I was in treatment, right? And I was like, going to tell him later. But that's all I said. And then he decided to get honest with me that he had still been talking to his ex and all of this because he thought I was going to come forth that I was seeing somebody, and that wasn't the case. And so it really did a number on me that made me realize that I lost my last opportunity with my father for somebody that, like, was not, like, my dad didn't deserve that.
Right.
And I made a vow to myself that no one, once I was able to get this live my life and live to be the daughter that I knew he raised me and he believed me to be, that I wasn't going to let go of that for nothing and for no one.
Yeah.
And that has what has carried me through no matter what. Because here's the thing, I got married with ideas that this person was going to fill the other side of me, right? That they're going to fill that void. That's not how it works. Relationships, we either come in whole to complement each other, but if you're coming in thinking that other person is supposed to help you become a better person, I'm sorry, but that's bullshit. That's not what happens. They're working on themselves too. Yeah. And they're not to fill you. And I shared this recently, like I had to learn. I had to be in an ugly spot. I had to be in a really ugly spot to learn that I needed to stop looking to people to fix what my God, that's his void, his hole, his space, and stop using them to fill that space. So it's taken a lot of step work, a lot of work. I do my daily devotions, I read my word, I do all of that, right? But I don't do that to be like, oh, this is what I read and this is what I do. It's because I need more of him and less of me. I know how dangerous I am. And I've learned that I'm beyond the age of somebody else pouring into me. It's my turn. I got to take charge of this. We have responsibilities today. It's my responsibility to fill myself up with what I believe in. That's my job. And so today, I've just taken that accountability to do that, and I'm grateful. I wasn't grateful in the middle of the really hard spots. I was not grateful at the moment, and I thought, my God, why did you leave me? Why? Is something wrong with me? Yeah. Why am I not good enough? Why is this happening? Like, why? What's wrong with me? That I'm not getting what I want, what I think I should get, right? And you're not making it happen. And I'll never forget, my God was like, look at your phone. He's like, who's reached out to you recently? And he's like, think about the people around you and who's like waiting for you to call them, And I have like a lot of beautiful people in my life that were reaching out to me, but because they weren't the person that I wanted it from, I let my disease lie to me and tell me that I wasn't getting it.
Right.
So alone moments with my God, he tells me the truth and he shows me and says, no, look a little further, look all around. Okay, now it's your choice. If you don't get what you feel you need and you're not getting that void, it's because you choose not to get it where I'm giving it to you.
Yeah.
So I had to start reaching back to people and getting my spirit filled where it was being poured into. And then I've learned I want to try to do a lot more of that. So I've kind of taken it upon to, like, when I see people with low self-esteem, especially, the women, right? Like, because I can recognize from a woman to a woman. And I'm like, I know that I just want to keep pouring and pouring and pouring into you. It's the simple things. Just telling somebody they're beautiful. Just telling them they're worthy. Just telling them you believe in them. Yeah. Like, we make better decisions when we feel, when we feel better about ourselves.
Yeah.
I've made a lot of better choices in my life now, and I still got a long ways to go. I do. But, like, I'm grateful to be on this journey.
Hell yeah.
I'm grateful.
Hell yeah. That was amazing.
It was.
So, you got anything, Adam?
No.
No? I got one question for you. We end it the same every time. If there is a young woman out there that's right in the middle of some of the same things that you've been through, has some children, not present in their life right now, and just doesn't know what to do, what would you tell her right now?
I would tell her that to definitely take the opportunity that's in front of you to get all the love you need for you. Because, I didn't realize that when I'm sat down at certain times, that's because God is trying to give me something and he's trying to pour into me because he wants me to be ready when when they come. When they come, I got to be ready because I can't I think I'm ready to love on them. But if I don't even have love for myself, what am I teaching them?
Mm-hmm.
What am I teaching them, really? I'm teaching them how to fill that void with other things. Like, I've got to teach them what real self-respect, what real, love for yourself really means. Not what the world says it means. Not the pretty hair and the nails and the right kind of shoes and the clothes or the looking, magazine fine. Like, not the outer stuff, That'll come. We make better decisions. Like, I want to eat healthier when I start loving myself more, right? Like, that's the truth, But I got to learn how to really, love me to make better decisions. And if you don't have them right now, just know that your story's not over. It's not done until God says it's done. I've seen so many miracles around here. That's why I love the rooms too, because I get to see and hear other people's stories that reminds me that where I'm at right now is not permanent. It's not. It can change at any given time, but right now is my time to be ready for that, though. When that change comes, how ready am I going to be for it, just take the time to treat yourself, love on yourself. Remind yourself how pretty you are, how beautiful you are. What do you like about you?
Mm-hmm. All right.
Hell yeah.
Well, thank you, Rachel. We really appreciate you coming on. And for all you guys who are listening, please subscribe, share this with somebody who you think might need to hear Rachel's story. Also, be sure to follow us on Instagram, which is @TheMessageIsHope.
And if you know somebody who you would like to suggest to us to be on the podcast, if you're looking for some resources or you just don't know where to start, you can reach out to us on social or email us at themessagesHopePodcast@gmail.com. We do check that regularly, and we'll see you next week.
Now, I can use some hope right now. Can you spare some hope right now? Lately I've been thinking about this life and how it brought me here. Staring at this man in the mirror, I see him often here. Wipe my tears, only if you knew what I was going through. Only if you walked it in my shoes.
Looking at the skylight, thinking of my life looking for the right state of mind to get my time right. I just hope my time's right, lost up in the limelight, but you'll never know unless you walked up in my shoes.
As someone who struggled with addiction in the past, how does it feel to be able to give hope to others who are still struggling now?
It's such an honor to be able to hear other people's experiences of life, to see how when faced with the very thing that was sent to destroy you, kill you, and take you out forever didn't, but rather you have been given a second chance to give hope and be a light for those who are still in the dark. So don't be afraid to share your message to the world. You never know whose life you might be saving.